So I've just finished recording my September wrap up, and I apologise for how long that video was. So if you watched it, I am so sorry, but I'm moving swiftly on now to my Q3 wrap up. So that means I get to reflect on the last 3 months of reading and share with you my top 8 reads from the last quarter. So let's start with the stats. So in the months of July, August and September, so they Q3 basically of the year, I read 41 books in total. So that's 4 books behind my schedule. So I've got some catching up to do in the fourth quarter. In total, it was 14,212 pages, and it came to about 156 pages per day, so slightly down on my normal average, which is about 165 pages per day, but not too bad. Of the books I read, I had 1 2-star read, 1 3-star, 6 3.5 stars, 22 4 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 8 5-star reads. I read 3 billionaire romances, 4 contemporary, 7 dark, 2 erotic, 1 fantasy, 16 mafia, 1 romance, 1 Omegaverse, 1 paranormal, 2 small town, and 3 sports romances. And in terms of how I read them, I had 3 arcs, 4 audiobooks, 4 ebooks, 27 Kindle Unlimited, and 3 physical reads as well. So I'm gonna dive straight into my top 8 reads of the month, and these are all the books that I rated 5 stars. So the first one will be no surprise at all. It is Heart of Frost and Scars by Pam Godwin, and this is book 3 in the Frozen Fate trilogy. I've talked at length about this one on several occasions, and I've also done a deep dive on this one as well. So if you want to hear my full thoughts, you can check the deep dive out, and I'll put a link to it in the description box down below. Now, this is an extremely dark romance. It's also a very long series as well. Each book is well over 500 pages, and this third book is no different. It's a chunky read, but Pam does not waste a single word. I soaked up every single word on every single page and was riveted throughout this whole series. I never feel like I can talk about this one without at least explaining a bit of the background about the others, but essentially our main character in this book, our main heroine, is Frankie. She is a fantastic character, and at the very start of this trilogy, she is married to a man called Monty. She finds out she's pregnant. They have an argument about it because Monty doesn't want children, and basically he kind of goes off in a huff, and when he comes back, his wife is not there anymore, and at first he thinks maybe she has run away and left him, but actually what's happened is Frankie has been kidnapped by a horrible man called Denver, and he's taken her to a remote place in what we believe is the most northerly parts of Alaska, in the Arctic Circle basically, in this very cold, forbidding landscape, which he occupies with his 3 sons, Leo, Cody and Wolfson. And basically book 1 is trying to figure out exactly what's going on, who Denver is, what he's done, why she's there, how everything connects, and it's just very dark, oppressive sort of romance. It's probably the darkest of 3 in terms of content, and Denver is not a nice man at all. Still, Frankie forges a relationship with each of his sons, Leo, Cody and Wolf, and basically you know, they kind of team up together to you know, try and sort Denver out. Then we move to book 2 in the series, where we are currently left with just Frankie, Leo and Cody, and now the second book is very much a tale of survival, because they need to find a way to get out of where they are. They are kind of trapped in for the winter. There is a plane, but nobody knows how to fly it, and they're running out of food, have very limited access to heating, and they face one tough winter. So it's about how they're going to kind of work together to survive, but also figure out a way that they're going to escape this horrible place. And then finally, in this book here, which is, you know, my first 5-star read of the quarter, we're finally in a position where they are out and they're kind of back in civilization, but now we've got new trials, right? Because Leo and Cody have never lived in normal society before. They are very wild sort of men that need to at least tame their personalities a little bit in order to kind of fit in without getting themselves into quite a lot of trouble. We also are reunited with Monty, who's not going to be too happy that his wife is so close with 2 other men. And we're not 100% out of the woods, so we've escaped you know, this place in Alaska where they were kept, but there's other dangers still lurking out there that they kind of need to figure out and overcome. This particular book, there's loads and loads of tropes in here, loads and loads of content warnings, but the main ones for me is this is a dark romance, it's a why choose romance. There's also a stalker in here, none of which are the heroes in here, but there is a stalker. It's a second chance romance for Frankie and her husband, and definitely a mystery element to this as well. It's written very much kind of like a suspense, kind of thriller sort of vibe around it, where we try and figure out kind of like the last danger, if you like, that we need to overcome. And so basically, if you haven't read this series yet, I highly recommend it if you are a fan of dark romance. But check your trigger warnings and buckle in, because it is one wild ride for sure, but brilliantly done, and I absolutely loved this book, the last book in the series. Then another 5-star read, which I am going to mention only briefly because I've talked about this book so many times before. That is Ruthless Creatures by T Geissinger. This was the 4th time that I read it, and I read it via audiobook. So I listened to the audiobook. It's narrated brilliantly by Troy Duran, Brooke Daniels and Michelle Sparks. And I listened to this as kind of a comfort read. So basically in August, my mum was sick and ended up in hospital. So this is the book that I kind of read while I was travelling to and from the hospital, because 1, I wanted a comfort read, but 2, I wanted a book that I didn't have to think too highly about. Like if I lost my concentration while I was listening and you know, was thinking about some other things, because I was obviously very preoccupied, I wanted a book that I, you know, knew kind of what happened. It didn't matter if I missed sort of sections, if you like. And so I picked up this book again because I love the audio book for this. I think Troy Duran's voice is absolutely brilliant, but I also love this story, these characters, the banter between them. It's absolutely fantastic. So definitely a 5-star read, and would highly recommend. It just gets better and better every time I read it. In case you don't know, this is book 1 in the Queens and Monsters series, of which is 4 books, and I recommend them all. They're all absolutely fantastic. And in this one we are following Cage and Natalie. Cage is the head of the Russian mafia, or pretty much is the head of the Russian mafia. And at the start of this book, Cage goes to find Natalie because her ex-fiance stole a lot of money from the mafia, and he's gone basically as a bit of a debt collector to go and figure out if she knows where her ex-fiance is, and also to get the money back. But as soon as he lays eyes on Natalie, obviously he is completely smitten, can't bring himself to, you know, hurt her in any way, and they start a relationship from there. Then the next one that I rated 5 stars was The Sweetest, Oblivion by Danielle, which is book 1 in the Maid series. This is another mafia romance, forbidden romance. It's Italian mafia. It's one of those tales again where the hero ends up with the other sister, because at the start of this book the hero is engaged to the heroine's sister. It's also an arranged marriage and forced proximity. We're following Elena and Nicholas. I really, really like this one. I, again, I've spoken about it at length and was very pleasantly surprised by how good this one was. I've said before that I've wanted to read the Maid series for a while, but I'd heard books 2 and 3 were really good, but book 1 was a bit slower, not everyone's favourite, and so I was kind of putting it off. But I'm so glad I read it because it was absolutely fantastic, and I loved every second of this one. I gobbled this one up because Nicholas was the kind of hero that I absolutely love. He was so intense and so focused on our heroine. Right from the start, you could just feel the magnetic chemistry between these two. It was oozing off the page, and I just really wanted them to be together. Because essentially what happened in this one is Elena is the elder sister, but she's been involved in a bit of a scandal because 6 months prior she was lost her virginity to a regular guy. In fact, he was a security guard, a very young security guard. They had a bit of a fling for the weekend, and when her father found out, he basically unalived the security guard, and then Elena was sidelined because of this scandal that surrounds her, because of course in the Italian mafia the women are supposed to be virgins until they get married, so not a great look for the family. However, Nicholas is looking for a wife and he wants to kind of like form an alliance with the family, and so he's offered Elena's sister, who is supposedly pure. The thing is, Nicholas doesn't really want the sister, he wants Elena, and it's quite clear from the beginning that he is, you know, totally smitten by her. Still, he is an honourable man and he's going to do the right thing, and he is determined to marry the sister. But of course, the more and more times that he meets Elena, the more their chemistry is going to sizzle. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love this book, because there were moments in here where the family kind of came together for dinners and things, because leading up to the wedding they were trying to, you know, merge their families together, if you like. And so Elena and Nicholas did spend quite a bit of time together, but they obviously couldn't show anyone that they were attracted to each other, and so it was you know, it felt very kind of like taboo and forbidden, and some very, very intense kind of erotic moments in this story where they're kind of just, you know, quipping backwards and forwards, you know, making eye contact, that sort of thing. And I thought the author did this absolutely brilliantly. So of course, when an opportunity presents itself for Nicholas to end the engagement with his sister and move in on Elena instead, he doesn't hesitate to take the opportunity, and that's kind of what happens. So like I said, I absolutely loved it and would highly recommend. So another mafia romance which I read, which I absolutely love, rated 5 stars, is The Fallen God Duet by Gabrielle. So book 1 in this duet is When He Desires, and then basically book 2 in this duet is When He Takes, and these are recent releases. So this duet is a spin-off basically from her The Fallen series. At the end of book 4 of that series, our main hero in this one, Nero, basically makes some mistakes, which basically means he needs to fake his own death and kind of go into hiding. And so book 1, When He Desires, starts off where he is trying to live a normal life in this small town. He's bought a local business, it's a construction company, and he's trying to, you know, integrate himself into normal society. He's having a bit of a difficult time though, because he really, really misses being in the mafia, being like an enforcer, and you know, is a little bit bored, shall we say, of regular life. That is until he moves in next door to our heroine in this one, Blake, and he instantly takes a shine to her, and she's just the distraction that he's going to need. The thing is, Blake has not had too great a time recently. She isn't well liked in town because her father was kind of in a local motorbike club, so he has a bit of a bad reputation. She's kind of looked down upon a bit in town, and she had recently been going out with the mayor's son, where she dated him for quite a while actually, but he just is not a nice person at all, and then he ended up cheating on her. She found out, so she kind of broke up with him, and of course, because he's so kind of like loves himself so much, and because he's the mayor's son, he wields a lot of power in town. You know, he's outraged that she would break up with him, and he's like constantly on at her to get back together with him, and, you know, come on, you're overreacting, and you know, you're lucky that someone like me would want to be with someone like you, and all of that lovely stuff, you know, that will make our heroine feel absolutely fantastic, because he's such a douche. So she's in not a great place, like I say, and after splitting up with her boyfriend, she really just wants to leave town and have a fresh start. So she has planned to basically sell her house and leave. Meanwhile then, Nero moves in next door to her, and they start this relationship, and he really, really likes her. And when he hears that there's a chance she's going to be moving away, he decides that he can't have that, because he wants to spend more time with her. And so he starts a little fire in her house, forcing her to have to move in with him. And then of course he's going to say, hey, I own a construction company, so I'll help you repair the house, so then you can sell it. So obviously she doesn't know he's the one that started the fire, but you know, it's a ruse of his to get her to move in with him basically, and he can spend more time with her. Now, of course, she's going to be a bit sceptical. Why is this person being so nice to her and offering to do up a house for free and everything? And he sort of says, no, you'll actually be doing me a favour. In fact, I think we should fake date. Because if we fake date, then I'll get a better reputation around town. It'll be good for my business. People will think I'm a really nice sort of like, sturdy sort of guy. So it's actually beneficial to me. And so she kind of goes along with it. But of course, it's not going to be too long before his past is going to come back to bite them both. And we end book 1 on quite a cliffhanger, where she finally figures out exactly, who he is and what he's done and all of that. Even though she started to have feelings for him, when she finds out that he's really in the mafia and, not a nice guy, she really doesn't want to be with him anymore because of the way her father treated her mother, and she's really against criminals generally, which, you would be, but like she's particularly like, I don't want to get myself into a situation like that. So as we start book 2 in this duet, when he is literally kidnapped her. He's like, look, you are in danger. People know who you are. There's people after us. You are going to come with me and you're not going to cause a scene. And so he forces her to go with him. He then forces her to marry him because he basically says this will make sure that she's protected, because he has to now go back to New York to fess up and say he did not pass away, that he's still alive, and he's going to have to answer to the mistakes of his past. He thinks he is going to be executed for sure, and so he wants to marry her so that she becomes part of the mafia family, and then his mafia will take care of her even after he's gone. So this is kind of his thinking. Of course, when he gets back and he confronts the person that he did wrong, the person does not unalive him as he thought he would. In fact, he offers him a deal and suggests that he goes undercover with the Russian mafia to try and bring the Russian mafia down. Basically, that will benefit the Italians, of which he is part of the Italian mafia. Of course, that basically means that they're going to have to spend more time together because they are now technically married, and he needs her to at least stick around until everything's been resolved, so to keep her safe. And now they're in close proximity together, and she kind of gets roped into this undercover plot as well. And so I absolutely love this one. I love this duet because book 1 is very much feels, at least to start, like a small town sort of romance, very wholesome, and then by the time we get to book 2, we're like full on mafia mode, and Nero really, his character really kind of shines, and we get a mafia hero that we absolutely love. So really enjoyed this whole duet. Book 1 I actually rated 4 stars, but the second book was a 5-star read, and overall the duet is definitely a 5-star read for sure. So another 5-star read is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This is book 2 in her Rose Hill series. This is a small town romance. It's a pop star romance. Our hero in this one is a cowboy. He's also a single dad, and the two of them end up in very close proximity because she becomes his housemate, and we are following West and Skylar. So West is the brother of the heroine from book 1 and also best friends with the hero from book 1, and like I say, he's a bit of a cowboy. He owns his own kind of ranch farm, if you like, and what he does is he trains horses, so that's his thing. He's a bit of a horse whisperer. Like I said, he's also a single dad because he was in a previous relationship. He's got 2 children, and he is still very friendly with the mother of his children, but they're no longer together, and they share kind of custody and have the children 1 week on, 1 week off. The kids are absolutely fantastic in this, absolutely love them, and I think Elsie Silver always does a fantastic job of writing kids in a way that we, they still feel like children, but they drop in pearls of wisdom, and they're so likeable. They're not at all pretentious or obnoxious or anything like that, and his kids were no different, really liked them. So in his younger day, he was a bit of a wild child, and now his whole focus is just on being with his kids basically, and really misses them when they aren't there. Meanwhile, Skylar is, like I say, is a pop star. She's a very famous pop star. And she was a child sort of celebrity, so she was famous from being a child, which of course meant that her mum and dad were very kind of like involved in her career, so much so that unfortunately they've kind of like been getting her to sign contracts that have been advantageous to them, and they've been very much controlling her career, what she sings, how she dresses, her reputation, who she dates even, and have also been kind of like skimming money from her. So she should by rights be a very, very wealthy woman, but in fact most of the money went to her parents and she doesn't own a lot of stuff for herself. When she kind of has this sort of light bulb moment and she realises, you know, that she doesn't control anything, she goes into a bit of a downward spiral and she starts to struggle in interviews. She starts to get a bit of a bad reputation and people starting to say horrible things about her in the media. And so when she is offered a chance to record her own music in the recording studio in Rose Hill, which was established in book 1, she jumps at the chance to go, and she pretty much cuts off her family, and this is something she wants to do for herself, that it's going to be all hers, that they can't control, and she really wants to go to Rose Hill to really kind of like, you know, reconnect with her music, find herself again, and so is desperate just to have some alone time basically. So the start of this book, she's travelling into Rose Hill and she stops on the side of the road because she sees a bear and she thinks this will be a great thing to photograph and put on her social media. Of course, that is not the greatest idea, not the safest idea, and West happens to be driving along in his car, sees her on the side of the road, wonders what the hell she's doing, gets out and basically suggests to her that she's very much put herself in danger. Of course, because she's sort of like feeling quite emotional, she really is sick of people telling her what to do. She doesn't react too well to what West is telling her, what West is advising her to do. And of course then they have a bit of an exchange, shall we say. But ultimately West does save her from this bear, and then they kind of go their separate ways. However, they're going to be reunited pretty quickly after this, because when she gets to kind of Rose Hill Records, she is told that the guest rooms aren't quite ready yet, but the heroine from book 1 suggests that Skylar stays in her brother's guest house, and takes her there, and then obviously Wes and Skylar are reunited once more, because it in fact is Wes' guest house that she is told that she is going to be staying in. So now they're in pretty close proximity, and Skylar very much then meets his family, meets the kids. She has a great connection with his son in particular, and really starts to just reconnect with nature and with the animals, and just being out on the farm and sitting by the water and all of that, and really kind of like wants to get involved in kind of like the wholesomeness of being sort of in the country, if you like. And Wes and Skylar start this very kind of like sweet kind of like friendship as they start to spend a bit more time together, you know, with and without the kids basically, and the kids absolutely fall in love with her and kind of encourage her to do things with them and stuff as well. So I really did enjoy that aspect, and you know, I think it's just a great story of how these two people kind of like figure out who they are, what they want, and yeah, would absolutely highly recommend. Next up then I had Play Along by Liz Tomforde, and this is book 4 in the Windy City series. And this one is a sports romance, it's a baseball romance, it is a workplace romance, it's a marriage in Vegas, so they get a Vegas wedding. It's a marriage deal, and we have a golden retriever hero as well. We're following Kennedy and Isaiah. So Isaiah is a baseball player. He is the brother of the hero from book 3, and Kennedy is kind of on the medical team for the baseball team, and basically is a bit of a physiotherapist, that sort of thing. Now, Isaiah has had the hots for Kennedy since she first started working for the team, since he first laid eyes on her, and he's been very flirty with her over the years. But Kennedy was always very standoffish, always pushed him away, always said no, and it seemed in the other books, because we've seen Isaiah and Kennedy interact before, it seemed in the past that Kennedy really didn't like Isaiah. Now, when we start this book, obviously we learn a lot more about these characters and also figure out that maybe Kennedy doesn't dislike Isaiah as much as it seemed, and actually they had a connection with each other, and there's a reason why Isaiah is acting the way he is, and he isn't been quite as inappropriate as maybe we think he was in the past. Because well, what we know is that Kennedy is, you know, has been brought up in a very wealthy household, but she's never really known any love. Her family demands a lot from her. She's trained as a doctor, But her father owns quite a big business. He was forcing her to marry somebody who he wanted to take over the business, basically, to keep this kind of business in the family. She didn't want to marry him, but she was kind of doing her duty, and they were engaged for a while until eventually the fiance basically cheats on her with her kind of stepsister, half sister, and she ends up breaking up with him, and you know, her family weren't too happy with her, and she's kind of like been avoiding them as much as possible kind of ever since. But one of the sticking points in their relationship, or her relationship with her fiance in the first place, was the fact that he claimed that she was so cold in their relationship because she's never really known love before. She's also never known any affection, hasn't really even been hugged before. So she finds physical contact quite difficult, makes her feel really uncomfortable, and so the ex-fiance kind of like accused her of being pretty much frigid, basically, and so that really kind of hurt her feelings as well. To top it off, her dream is to be head of a medical team for a sports team, and she very much believed that she was going to do her dream job with Isaiah's baseball team. It was not a senior position, but it was a position on the medical team nonetheless. However, when she turns up for the job, the guy who is the head of the medical team is not happy that she's a woman, and as a result treats her really, really badly, and in fact kind of demotes her to a much lower rank, something that she is well overqualified for. Now, Isaiah witnesses this conversation and is outraged on her behalf, but she begs Isaiah not to tell anyone because she really, really, like I say, her dream is to work in the sports medicine world, and she thinks that if she just keeps her head down and grafts really hard, her efforts will be rewarded, and that she'll somehow win over her boss and be, you know, promoted to the role that's more suited to the level of qualifications that she actually has, because technically she should actually be leading the team. So Isaiah promises to keep this between them, but he very much forms kind of this bond with her, and so hence, you know, he's always flirting with her in public, and she tries to discourage it, but really, you know, they actually do have this sort of understanding, this friendship between them. Meanwhile, we just know that Isaiah is such a great person. All he really wants is to fall in love, get married and have a family. Both him and his brother lost their parents when they were really, really young, and they lost them in an accident during a really bad storm, and as a result Isaiah is triggered very heavily when there is a bad storm, and he has to like check up on all his loved ones basically, and kind of goes into a bit of a spiral. But other than that, Isaiah is a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but like I say, really sets his sights on Kennedy. So one night they both happen to be in Vegas. He's there celebrating with his team before the upcoming season, and she's there because she's there for a bachelorette party for her sister, who is going to be marrying her ex-fiance. When she bumps into Isaiah in Vegas and he says, "Hey, do you want to get out of here?" she says, "Yes, absolutely," and she goes with him, and then they spend an amazing night together. They get drunk, they share secrets, and she tells him a little bit about what's been going on, and sort of says, you know, she really wants to kind of one-up her sister and the ex-fiance, and they end up deciding in a drunken haze that they're going to get married in Vegas, and so that's what they do. They get married in Vegas, they go back to his hotel, and when they wake up in the morning and they realise what's happened, both of them are shocked. But Isaiah is really, really happy because he really, really wanted to marry her, so he's got exactly what he wanted. She's a bit less happy about the situation. The thing is, there were photographs coming out of the chapel in the paper, and now it's common knowledge that they got married, and in order to save her career, basically, she needs to go along with it. Obviously, she can't say, "Oh yeah, we got drunk and had a fling in Vegas and we accidentally got married," because they'd kick her off the team. So instead, what they say is they've actually been dating a long time, that the marriage is genuine, and, you know, that will basically save her career. So they kind of have this fake marriage situation going on, and now they're going to have to, at least in public, show that they are married, at least until the end of the season, where she's hoping to get a new job with a different team. And so Isaiah takes this opportunity and he thinks, right, I'm not going to waste this opportunity. In the time that I've got, I'm going to try and convince her that I'm the one for her and that she's going to want to stay married to me and she's not going to want to leave. And so that is kind of the premise of this book. And of course, as they get to know each other more and spend more time together, and this also becomes kind of like a teaching scenario as well, because Kennedy sort of says to Isaiah, will you help me get used to physical contact, physical intimacy? And of course she very much warms to Isaiah, and he helps her in that department. But also she very much helps him with his anxiety around the storms and things like that as well. So I really did enjoy this one. Like I say, rated at 5 stars, is on my one of my top books for the quarter. Next up then we have The Takeover by T L Swan. This is book 2 in the Miles High Club. This is a billionaire romance with a single mum, and we're following Tristan and Claire. Tristan is the takeover king because he is one of the Mileses. They own a massive media company. They are basically billionaires, pretty much rule the world. Tristan is a very handsome man, knows it, and you know, some people might think he's a little bit obnoxious, but in the main he's pretty well received by the female community, shall we say, and he certainly has his pick of women. Meanwhile, Claire is pretty much his total opposite, because she was married for a long time, very much in love with her husband, and has 3 boys. Unfortunately, her husband is in a car accident and passes away and leaves her as a widow and single mum to 3. In addition to that, he also leaves his business because her husband had a media business, a fairly small one compared to the Mileses, but still a business nonetheless, and she very, very much wants to keep it up and running so that when the boys are old enough, they can take over this company and run it. However, 5 years kind of pass and the business is not doing very well, and you know, she's really sort of struggling because, like I say, she's trying to bring up these 3 boys by herself and keep the business running, and she's under a lot of pressure, and the boys are actually quite a handful as well. So of course, Tristan Miles, being the takeover king, sees an opportunity and offers to buy the company from Claire, and of course Claire turns him down quite harshly. He's so intrigued by Claire and her feistiness that he asks her on a date, and she once more declines him, and takes great delight in saying no to him as well. And then about 6 months pass, and then both of them happen to be at a conference in France, a business related conference. Tristan is actually there as a speaker, and Claire is there as kind of an attendee, so they kind of meet each other again. Now obviously, while she's away from home, it's much harder to deny the chemistry that she has with Tristan and how attractive they are to each other, and he basically sort of says, look, I want you, it's clear you want me, we're away right now, so how about we spend some time together, spend the week together, and you know, what happens in France can stay in France, kind of thing. And so Claire agrees to this, but they have an absolutely amazing time. It's not just the chemistry and the sex scenes in here, but the connection they have as a couple, the banter that they have between them, and they're really, really cute together. And then of course at the end of the week, Tristan offers her an extended stay to spend the weekend with him in Paris, and so she does. They kind of agree to go their separate ways when they get back to America, but Tristan very much wants to still see her, and she's like, look, I've really had a great time with you, I think you're a great person, but we're just 2 different people. I'm a single mum of 3 trying to keep my business afloat, and you're a multi-millionaire, a billionaire with women throwing themselves at you, and I don't think that our lifestyles are compatible. Anyway, Tristan is not one to be defeated, and so he decides to go round to her house, and the first interaction where he meets her sons is absolutely hilarious because they are feral, and he kind of runs away in terror because they're so crazy. But it's absolutely hilarious. The whole scene is so funny. I really enjoyed it. But then slowly but surely, Tristan worms his way into their lives, forms a relationship with each of the sons, forms a relationship with Claire, and is determined to make this situation work. I really enjoyed every single minute of it. Like I say, great banter between them, great chemistry between the characters, and would definitely recommend. Okay, so the 8th and final 5-star read of the quarter, and that's Pawns in the Bishop's Game by Emilia Finn. As I've said before, this is my favourite read of 2021. I'd read it twice in that year, and it'd been a while since I'd read this one. So when I get a prompt card last month to reread a favourite, I jumped at the chance to pick this one up again because I was really curious to see if it would hold up to my memory of it. And since I read this one, I've read so many more mafia and dark romances, and I just wanted to see if it would have quite the same impact as it did the first time I read it. So I will say some of the scenes in here didn't have packed quite the same punch as they did the first time I read them, but still I thoroughly enjoyed this one and had to rate this one 5 stars. So we are following Kane Bishop. Now Kane Bishop is an enforcer for a local criminal, you know, he's a pretty bad man, he's done some bad things. Meanwhile, our main female character in this one is Jess. She has trained to be a lawyer, she's almost fully qualified, she's just about to take the bar, and she works for a lady called Jules, who owns the law firm and is married to the local sheriff. Now, Jules and her husband basically are trying to eliminate all of the bad elements from their town, as you would want to, and so they're trying to build a case against Kane Bishop and his boss in order to basically be able to prosecute them and put them in prison. So Jess works for this law firm, like I said. One of her key tasks is to build a case against Kane Bishop himself, and so she's got a folder on him, this like dossier of everything she knows about Kane Bishop, and she becomes obsessed with Kane and trying to gather a case against him. Not content to just read the theoretical stuff that she's got in her folder though, she wants to see him up close and personal and kind of get a lay of the land, because this criminal organisation, their base of operation is basically in this kind of really seedy nightclub in the bad part of town, and in there obviously it's not just a nightclub, but there's women of the night in there, and also underground fighting and you know, various other criminal activities, drug trafficking and you know, weapons trafficking and stuff like that. Now Kane is the enforcer. He is supposed to keep his boss alive basically and do his dirty work for him. And one night he's waiting in an alleyway for a deal to go down, so very much on duty. It's the same night that Jess decides to go to the club, like I say, to see if she can figure out anything out, to kind of get the lay of the land, but she sticks out like a sore thumb because she's really generally for her in completely the wrong side of town, and there's lots of bad elements around. One of them is a guy who, you know, assaults and unalives women, and he happens to see Jess, capture her, drag her into the alley in order to do some bad things. Now this happens to be the same alley that Kane Bishop is standing in, and although Kane shouldn't be getting involved, he definitely needs to turn a blind eye and just carry on with what he's there to do. There's something about Jess that compels him to rescue her, and from there their fates are tied together basically, because Kane Bishop is now going to be in a lot of trouble with his boss. His boss is not a nice man at all, and he will definitely punish Kane for getting involved, and Jess now kind of owes Kane a bit of a debt because he saved her, but also she's become even more intrigued by him, and they end up spending more time together. And Kane is very much trying to say, you know, you don't want to be with me, don't come onto my side of town, but Jess keeps coming and he keeps having to save her. And so there's a couple of scenes in here, there's quite a few scenes in here obviously, but there's a couple of scenes in here that were very sort of gripping. They have you on the edge of your seat. They're quite difficult to read, particularly the first time you read them, but I love the fact that they keep saving each other. So there are times where he saves her very much and other times where she very much has to save him, and they form this very strong bond where she's still like, you know, it's going to be a shame when I finally do put you in prison, and he's like, you're never going to take me down basically, but I need to keep you safe. And so I just love the how their relationship develops, how their bond develops. And there's something about Jess that just knows that even though Kane's done lots of bad things, he's not a bad person underneath, and she's desperate to try and save him and get him out of the life that he's got himself involved in. So like I say, it didn't quite pack the same punch as it did when I read it back in 2021, because I'm a much more hardened dark romance reader now. But I still absolutely love this one. Love Kane Bishop to death, and would highly recommend. So there you have it. That is my wrap up for Q3 for 2024. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. And all that's left to do is for me to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Okay, so there we have it. They are my... So there you have it. That's... and all 8 of my 5-star reads that I read this month. Now I will say some of the scenes in here weren't quite as so I will say that you know, so she really doesn't want to be there. She doesn't get on with the sister, and you know, really isn't in the mood to be celebrating the fact that, you know, she's going to be marrying the person that she was due to marry to his remote cabin, like. So that means I'm going to summarise. So that means I get to summarise all of the books over the last 3 months, which is July, August, September. I almost forgot what months.